guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review season 13, episode 11 of Real Housewives of New Jersey. It was a decent episode, so let's get into it. All right, y'all, so let's get a little spicy. So before we get into this review, I want to talk about the reunion. So, if you didn't know, they filmed the reunion last week, and a lot of things have been coming out about the reunion. Honestly, I take these kind of like blind items in a way, or even when Andy talks about it, because we're also going to talk about that in this spicy corner about what he did. It wasn't like, it's never what they think it gives. They hype the reunion up to be so explosive and like, oh my gosh, and shock worthy, and then it's like, this was kind of mid. This was kind of trash. So I take it with a grain of salt. But let's talk about the seating arrangement. So we have Andy in the middle as always. On the left-hand side, you have Melissa, Margaret, and Rachel. On the right-hand side, you have Teresa, Jennifer, Dolores, and Danielle. And I don't think that the seating is weird or not. I did kind of, when I first started, I was like Dolores and Jennifer, because they had that beef in the beginning. But I did see, especially during the time of when the earthquake that happened in Turkey, Jennifer was making relief boxes. And if you didn't know, this year there was a massive earthquake in Turkey that caused a lot of devastation and destruction, and a lot of people lost their lives, and they needed help with supplies. And I think they probably still do. Like, the way it looked at, like, Turkey looked like almost on the same level, in my opinion, as what happened in Haiti during their earthquake. Like, it was a lot of, like, I just remember both videos of people, like the screams and the crying and the fear in people's eyes. It mirrored the same thing to me. So I think they're still rebuilding over there. But Jennifer was making relief boxes, and Dolores was at the place with her making them so they could ship them out. So I know they're cool. I do feel like Rachel and Jennifer should be, not Jennifer, Danielle should be moved up, because Danielle's been in a lot of beef, a lot of altercations, and so has Rachel in a way, slightly. But they did, to me, and I'm not really feeling either one of them, and I'll talk more about that in the actual review. But I do give them credit for actually showing up and not being afraid to get into arguments with veteran cast members as well as each other. So that's the seating arrangement. So let's get into what people are saying about what happened at the reunion. All right, y'all. So the next thing we're going to talk about is Andy. So Andy was on his XM radio show talking about the reunion, and I'm going to link articles below, so if you would like to read them for yourselves, you can. I'm just going to give y'all the Cliff Notes version. So I saw on Jay's reality blog, and this is where I'm getting it from, that pretty much Andy said that the reunion was monumental but upsetting. He said that he went off on Teresa, but then he later apologized. He said that Teresa and Melissa were coming at each other in ways that he never seen before, like the gloves were off. He also said that they didn't spend too much time on the family drama because new materials and new allegations arise, so they were going to talk about that. But he said overall it was a very draining reunion. I then read an article on page 6 about Teresa's behavior, where they pretty much said Teresa was unhinged, allegedly. She called Margaret a effing whore, allegedly, as well as they said you could tell that she was like anxious to see Joe and Melissa because it had been like 5 or 6 months. So that makes me believe that her wedding is probably going to be either the second to last or the last episode of the season, because they pretty much said like they stopped communicating with each other after they didn't come to the wedding. So I feel like that's what's going to happen. But they said Teresa was very like when it came to that, like, and they also said that Melissa didn't match that energy. So it seems that Melissa either was playing the game of, I'm not going to argue with you, I'm going to let you make yourself look crazy, or Teresa was coming at her so hard that she didn't really have anything to back up what she was saying. That's my thing. But like I said, y'all, I take these things with a grain of salt, even from Andy, because Andy will say like, this was spectacular, it was monumental, it was amazing, and then we get to the reunion and it's mid or it's trash. But yeah, y'all, so let's get into this review. All right, y'all. So the episode opens up, and it's still the continuation of the previous episode. It's still nighttime in Ireland, and they're still celebrating Teresa's bachelorette party. This is a dry bachelorette party, but they go to a pub. Jackie challenges a local to a beer drinking contest, like they're chugging a pint of Guinness. Jackie chugged it like a frat bro, like Melissa said. We then have Jennifer doing the same thing, but she was a lot more, I would say, she was a lot calmer and a little bit more graceful than Jackie when chugging the beer. They were also doing tequila shots. And what I will say is, like, Jackie seems to be in a better space. Like, we know that she got demoted, and we know that she was struggling with her eating disorder, but she seems like she's in a better space in the sense of, like, since the beginning of this season, she seems a lot more happier. And I'm not really a fan of Jackie. I find her to be pretentious and condescending, and I look at her like, sis, you're on the same show as everybody else that you try to kind of play with, like trying to talk down to. But she seems like she's more comfortable in her own skin, and I'm happy for her. I was with Jennifer when she said stick to tequila, because I have tried for a while to like beer, but I just can't. I can't drink that dirty brown sewage water, y'all. I ain't never drank sewage water, but I know that's probably what that tastes like. Like, I have tried, because a lot of my friends, especially my guy friends, always say, like, beer is cheaper. And I'm like, yeah, it's cheaper, but it tastes disgusting. Even when you mix it with other things, it's disgusting. And the only beer that I like tolerate is Corona, and a lot of my friends are like, Corona is a baby beer, and I was like, I'll drink a baby beer, but if it's Corona, it's always mixed into a margarita. I'm not just out here drinking Corona by itself. I'm not doing that. But the night continues. They're all doing shots and having a good time. We see Rachel and Danielle kind of being cool, and it's the next day. So we have everyone sitting at the breakfast table. The only person that's not there yet is Danielle. So while they're sitting at the table, you have Melissa sitting next to Jennifer Aiden and being like, girl, what's going on? She was like, you don't think it was kind of weird that Danielle and Rachel were like buddy at the bar last night? Because the last time I saw you and Danielle called Rachel a rat. And Jennifer is like, well, maybe that's just how she felt. Like, Jennifer was trying to take up for Danielle, but I also don't think Jennifer really cared too much about what Melissa had to say. So Jennifer's just kind of sitting there, kind of like, I don't know. And then Melissa's like, well, I'm gonna tell her. And Jennifer's like, well, I ain't got, this ain't my beef. So she tells Rachel at the breakfast table, because Rachel is kind of looking at them like, what are y'all talking about? And Melissa's like, well, Danielle called you a rat. Everyone at that table was a gasp, was like, no, she did not call her no rat. Like, it gave very much like somebody dropped a bridal cake on the floor, like, or a pan of macaroni and cheese on the floor. Like, everyone was so like, oh my gosh. And you had Dolores being like, in her confessional, you can call a Jersey girl a lot of things, but rat is not one of them. That's like something you just don't play with. Like, you can call her a see you next Tuesday, a B word, but a rat is not one of them. You might get hands put on you, and some of them probably gonna go upside your head. So Danielle finally gets to the breakfast table. Everyone's still trying to like process what just happened with Melissa letting them know that Danielle called Rachel a rat. So I guess they were eating blood pudding for breakfast. And Danielle comes down. She greets everybody with good morning, and she's trying to fill her plate. And she's like, what is this? And Rachel's like, it's pudding. And Danielle's like, no, it's not. And then Jennifer's like, oh, and by the way, it has pig's bloods in it. And she was like, what? And so as she's sitting down, Rachel said, and rat's blood. So Danielle is finally peeping that, like, oh crap, she know what I said. So Danielle's like, yeah, I called you a rat. And I'll give 2 points for both of them. I'll give 2 points to Danielle that when she was confronted with it, she said, yeah, I called you that. She didn't stray away from it and she didn't try to backpedal from it. And I'll give Rachel 2 points for like confronting it head on at the table. But like, sis, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. It ain't, I'd have been like, y'all can't argue until it hit 12, but I understand it. So they start going back and forth at the table. Rachel is saying that she's not a rat. Danielle's like, you are, because you tried to act like the conversation that we had at that boutique wasn't a mutual conversation. You're making it seem like I was just trash talking her. And so then Rachel's like, I went back and told my friend what you said. And I want Rachel to stop calling Margaret her friend, because it's like, you don't know that lady. You just met her like a couple of months ago. She's an associate, and I get it, you're trying to align yourself with Margaret and Melissa, but you calling her your friend is kind of like, girl, the only person I could see you calling friend would be Melissa, and you and Melissa aren't even friends. Y'all are more associates. So they're going back and forth. Margaret is like, saying that like she's disgusted by Danielle's behavior, and she's like, it's really messed up that you did that, because we end up finding out that Margaret was trying to help Danielle like do better branding for her business, Bougie Kids, and we saw that like she was like playing around with fonts to help her out. And it makes more sense why Margaret has such a hard on with Danielle about this situation, because I feel as though Margaret feels like, sis, I extended myself to you and then you was out here talking bad about me, as well as Margaret is like, I've been nothing but kind to you. But I also think Margaret needs to understand, just because you're kind to somebody, the actions that you show that have been shown about you probably might put a bad taste in people's mouth about you. Because then Danielle brings up, what you did to Teresa, what you did to Jennifer. And Jennifer's like, yeah, what you did to Louie, what you did to me. Like, she's seen what you done. And so then Margaret's like, she wasn't even here for Louie, and she wasn't here for you, for the situation between me and you. So like, what are you what are you talking about? And they're going back and forth. Margaret's like, do you think I have an arsenal? And Danielle's kind of like, yeah, I do. So the conversation continues, and it's Rachel and Margaret versus Danielle, and they going back and forth. Dolores chimes in and she tells them like, let her speak pertaining to Danielle, because they were over talking her. And then they end the conversation because Dolores is like, we need to get ready to go shopping, and this is the second meal that y'all have ruined, so let's just get up and go. So for me, I see everybody's side. I can see why Danielle is upset with Rachel, because I feel like Danielle felt like she was building like camaraderie or allyship or even a friendship with Rachel, because they both are newbies and they seem to like really get along. And sometimes the newbies stick together, especially when it's two new people instead of one person by themselves. Like, it seems like she thought that that's what they had. So for Rachel to go back and tell Margaret, I think it just like took her by surprise. Because I also think Danielle was trying to like play the fence between Teresa, Jennifer, and Margaret this far. And then for Rachel, I get that Rachel is trying to align herself with Margaret. She also, technically, she didn't embellish the story. She just told what Danielle said, as well as if she were to say what she said, she didn't really say anything bad about Margaret. So Danielle trying to work this narrative that like we both were saying things, it doesn't really help you, because Rachel didn't really say anything negative. And then I get from Margaret's standpoint of view where she's like, I extended myself to you with my services. I've had my business for such and such time trying to help you out, and this is how you do me. So her feelings are hurt. But I also feel like, Margaret, a lot of people have seen the way that you've behaved on this show, and you can say the same thing about Jennifer, but we've seen the way that you've behaved on this show, and it's like new people might be like, okay, you're nice to me, but I've seen the way you treated other people that piss you off. I'm going to keep my distance. So she has to contend with that. So they all pile into the Sprinter and they're heading out to go shopping. And while they're on the bus, they start talking about divorces. Dolores lets us know that she's been divorced from Frank almost 24 years. And she also says how she never thought she would get a divorce. Then Teresa chimes in and is like, I never thought I'd be divorced either. And she starts talking about Joe Giudice and how, what her life. Basically, she went to jail for basically a year. Once she got out of jail, Joe went into jail. Then he got deported. Then, her mom was sick. She later on passed away 5 months after Teresa got out of jail. She was very angry and resentful towards Joe Giudice because she was like, I went to jail because of you, and I lost time with my mom. I spent my life in jail for that whole year, and I lost a year with my mom, basically. She was like, I knew it was over when he came out, and I didn't feel nothing for him. We talked and I felt nothing. She also said that Joe likes Louis, and I said, bitch, that's a red flag, because that man treated you horribly. And why? I'd be like, does Joe see Louis as him? Like, does he see himself in Louis? Get that checked out. Get it checked out. So then Rachel asks like a messy question where she's like, are you and Melissa's kids close? And I'm looking at Rachel in my head. I'm like, why would you ask that question? Like, that's not a question you ask somebody that you're not really friends with, nor is it a question that you ask someone in front of everybody. And Teresa's like, well, and then Melissa's like, are you about to say something negative about Antonia? And Teresa's like, no, I'm not about to say nothing negative about her. She's like, all I was about to say is that Melania felt some type of way, or her feelings were hurt that Antonia didn't come to her Sweet 16. So then Melissa says she was at a cheer competition where she was like, if she missed too many, like I guess 2 events, then she would be kicked off the team. And then Teresa was like, well, she could have came like an hour and stayed. And then Melissa's like, she was in Pennsylvania. And I was just kind of like, y'all. Then everyone's like, yeah, let's just keep the kids out of it. So then Melissa was like, yeah, I'm going to be that good aunt. I'm going to be this type of aunt, and you're going to be that type of aunt. And then I'm like, Melissa, shut up, because you're a hypocrite. Because we just saw that you hurt your nieces by saying that you guys put food on their table, and had you guys not filmed with her father, that they would be out on the streets pretty much. And it comes out to be, for them kids, it's not true. And I believe kids when they say when they say adults do things, because people try to act like kids are not cognizant and don't remember things that happened to them. And them kids said, sis, you weren't there until there were cameras. So y'all really weren't there for them the way that y'all like to lead on, act to be. And I'm like, you're a hypocrite, Melissa. Teresa's also a hypocrite, because Teresa goes on and on about wanting to be a family, wanting to be close. But then you also put yourself in situations that honestly you could not have answered the question. You could have been like, I wish they were closer. But yeah, they're close. There was no need to express that Melania's feelings were hurt that Antonia didn't come, because Antonia nor Melania are there to actually have this conversation between one another. And so Melissa's like, I'm going to be that aunt. Don't say nothing negative about my child. And I was like, she didn't say anything negative about your child. And I don't like what Melissa was doing, because I've been in arguments like that where the person will not let me get out what I'm trying to say, and they try to put words in my mouth. And then it pisses me off, because I'm pretty much realizing that you don't want me to say what I'm about to say, because what I'm about to say is about to ruin your whole entire day. So I just feel like Melissa blew that up out of nowhere. And I also feel like Rachel should have never asked the question, and Teresa shouldn't have answered it. Then Margaret kind of calms it down and says, let's just move on from the kids. Dolores even says that too, yeah, the kids aren't it. So then they finally make their way to the shops. We see them split up into groups. You have Melissa and Margaret in a group, then Danielle and Jennifer in a group, and then the rest of the ladies in another group. So the first conversation we're going to talk about is Margaret and Melissa. So Melissa is going on and on about how she feels like, now Teresa's trying to blame Antonia for the issues. And at first it was Joe, then it was me, now it's my Antonia. Next thing is gonna be little Joey because he looked at her some wrong way. And I was like, I can see Teresa being like that, but I do not think that's what Teresa meant. I don't think they should have had the conversation because Melania nor Antonia was there, but I don't think she was trying to say anything disparagingly about Antonia. I feel like Melissa is just taking this and running with it. And at this point, you're kind of reaching for an issue. But now Melissa is saying, like, I don't feel nothing for her or whatever. And I'm just like, Melissa, both of y'all are hypocrites. You got Margaret talking about how she thinks Danielle is an asshole and how she's like, I tried to help that girl out. Like, F her. I don't like her no more. So then we see the conversation between Jennifer and Danielle. And Danielle's like, Margaret was coming at me like a feral dog. Like, she was just coming at me, and while she's yelling at me, in the back of my mind, I'm like, girl, I know that you've been talking trash about your friend Melissa, saying that she out here cheating. One of y'all told me down in the comments that Nick is not a baseball player, he's an actor. But thank you for that. She's still cheating she's not cheating, but the rumor is that she is cheating with this man named Nick. So Jennifer's like, yeah, now you see. And my thing is, like, I want Jennifer to get away from trying to prove that Margaret is such this villain, because like I said before, at the end of the day, they still don't like you. They still rocking with Margaret, even if they see how Margaret treats other people. And it's like, you trying to prove your loyalty to them or prove that this person is so horrible. It doesn't really help. I also want Jennifer to take a page out of Candace's book from Real Housewives of Potomac. When Candace stopped reacting to Giselle and even Ashley, it exposed Giselle and Ashley, even though a lot of people already knew how Giselle and Ashley moved, more so Giselle. But it made Giselle look horrible because it's like you're picking at this person and they're not giving you a reaction. And it's like, if Jennifer could, I guess, police her responses to things, she would be so much better. She'd be so much better and people would find her more palatable. But she's like, yeah, finally someone sees. We then have the other group of girls, which is Jennifer Fessler, Teresa, Danielle, and Rachel. And Teresa's like, I was not about to say nothing horrible about my niece. Like, I love my niece. I wasn't about to speak negatively about her. But if someone asks me a question, I'm going to be truthful. And I was being truthful. And she's looking at Rachel. Rachel should have never asked the question. And Rachel's like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have never asked it. But then Dolores is like, well, y'all got to stop mentioning kids. Like, kids are off limits. Y'all cannot be talking about people's kids, like each other's kids. So we then have a scene where everyone piles back into the Sprinter and they head home to get ready for the rest of the night's festivities. Melissa ends up calling Joe and relaying the information about what happened between her and Teresa. Joe is like appalled and calling Teresa a hypocrite because she brought up Antonia. And then that's when Melissa is like, I don't feel nothing for her. I'm ready to cut the cancer, like she told Rosie and Kathy. Like, I'm ready to cut the cancer with her. And Joe was like, she's trying to make us get to the point where we don't show up to the wedding to make us look bad. And I was like, is she, or is y'all just want to use this as an excuse not to go to the wedding because you're not a part of it? Because when they were in the Sprinter, Melissa brings up about how, like, if you wanted to be a family, you would have put me in your wedding. But I'm like, if we're not friends, why would I even put you in my bridal party? The fact that you were invited should be good enough for you. Because I could have not invited all of y'all and called it a day if I was Teresa, and I'm not fooling with you. Like, it's not that deep. And it's weird to me that they're so pressed to be in her wedding, because I'm like, most people don't want to be a part of bridal parties. That's for like groomsmen and bridesmaids. Everyone's kind of like, you're just doing it because it's like a chore. Like, you're doing it for your friend because your friend asked you to be a part of this special moment. But 9 times out of 10, nobody wants to buy a new tuxedo. Nobody wants to buy a new dress that they know they probably can't wear ever again because it's ugly. Nobody wants to go pay to get their hair done and their makeup done a specific way that they can't like dictate how to do it. Nobody wants to go get a fade. It's like People find weddings to be chores, but they do it as an act of love and service to their friends if they really care about their friends because they know it's important to them. So I just feel like if she still invited y'all to the wedding, why was it such a big deal for y'all to be in the wedding when y'all clearly don't like each other? It's just something that you can harp on, that Joe and Melissa can harp on just to say that Teresa is a bad person. And Teresa not inviting the mom was a fail on her part, because even though you don't like the lady or you don't want the lady to be there, it would have just been nothing for you to keep the peace by inviting her and moving on. So our last scene is everybody going to get dinner. They go to this really nice restaurant, and we see a conversation between Danielle and Rachel where Danielle is trying to offer her bathroom to Rachel because I guess Rachel's bathroom didn't have a bathroom in it, or the bathroom's like really far away. And Rachel's pretty much like, girl, thanks, but no thanks. I don't feel comfortable being in a room or sharing a bathroom with somebody that thinks I am a rat. And Danielle's kind of like, but you were being one. So I called a thing. So then Rachel gets really mad. It starts yelling at Danielle, and Danielle starts yelling back. You got the other patrons of the restaurant looking at them like, look at these ghetto Americans in our Irish home. And I'm like, y'all are a mess. And they're going back and forth. You have other people at the table trying to tell them to like calm down, like y'all are being very loud, like y'all are being unruly. And Rachel's like, why don't you just own that like you judge Margaret off of other people's like opinions? And Danielle's like, I didn't. And Rachel's like, you did. Like you said that this morning. So then Margaret jumps in and she's like, yeah, you did say that. So then you got Danielle arguing again with Rachel and Margaret. And then Jennifer says, well, a chime like pipes up and she's like, well, Margaret, why do you care what Danielle said about you? Why do you care if she likes you or not? And Margaret's like, I don't like the fact that y'all are trying to defame my character. And Jennifer's looking at Margaret like, sis, you've done things to people. And Margaret's like, what have I done? And Jennifer's like, you called me a drug addict. And everyone's looking at her like, yeah, girl, that was below the belt. And Margaret's like, I'm sorry. And Margaret even admitted that like she can go below the belt. But she was like, I'm not going to take back disheveled. And like, I will say Jennifer has been being a little disheveled this season. But I'm looking at Margaret like, girl, you're no better. So, like I tell you, they two sides of the same coin. And Jennifer's like, you say things about me being like a hypocrite. You say that I'm this and I'm that, and then you act like I don't know certain words. Margaret's like, well, do you? And Jennifer's like, well, do you know what Boogawolf means? I said, Jennifer, what? And so everyone at the table is trying their best not to laugh. They're kind of looking at her like, girl, what does Boogawolf mean? And so then Melissa Googles what it means, and I even Googled what it meant, and pretty much the two things that described it was like someone who's like a girl that's a slut that is only like, you would only want to have sex with if she was like if you were drunk. Like she's very hairy, she's very unkempt, and she's only attractive when you're drunk. The other one was like, the other definition I saw was like someone that is slimy and nasty, that's like very ugly and very mean to people, but they think the world of themselves. So I was like, in a way, it kind of describes Margaret, even though I like Margaret, but Margaret has shown herself to be nasty towards people, especially the ones that she doesn't like. And again, like I've said before, you can't be mad about people having a certain perception of you when you've shown them how you treated others around them. So everyone's kind of like, well, Jennifer, that didn't land because no one knew what it meant. But I'm like, in a way it did, because y'all Googled it and did the work for her. And when they read out what it meant, you could tell Margaret kind of was like, kind of felt a little like twinge. But that's where the episode ended. Like they ended there with the whole Boogawolf comment. Everyone laughed it off. And they're going into the next episode, I guess, being somewhat of a unit. But yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. Remember to be bravely authentic. Hop down in them comments below and tell me what you thought. Deuces.